We're back. Or I guess I should say I'm back since I'm the only one sitting in this room. But 2 in a row. Today's episode is not only with one guest. Well, I think this is actually the first time that I've had 2 guests. So the first guest, if you guys follow the podcast, guys and gals, is the one and only John Dudley. I've done a few podcasts with him in the past, and if you know anything about this year for me, you know that what would be the best way to describe it? I would say I put my toes into the bow hunting kiddie pool, but I think what I really did was a cannonball into the deep end, and the only reason that I've had any success doing that is because of John and the coaching and teaching that he has given to me. And the trip that we just did, you guys will hear us talking about, is absolutely no different. So we went to France. We were supposed to go to an area of France that was near Grenoble. But just like when I look outside of my window right now, there are these little white things falling from the sky. And if you get enough of those stacked on top of each other, it makes things hard to move. So apparently where we were supposed to go received somewhere between 3 to 5 feet of snow. And the trip we originally had packed for was us taking our backpacks and hiking up into the mountains. I believe it was something like about a 4-hour hike. And it was going to be a hunting cabin with beds and, the ability to cook food, but no power, very detached. I was actually really looking forward to being in that environment. But the weather changed for us and we weren't able to do that. So the guide that we had, Philip, who was absolutely amazing, and I'll actually put his contact information up in the link in the podcast. He apparently just audibled and was able to find another area much farther from Grenoble. I believe the drive was probably 2.5 hours past Grenoble, but it was unbelievable. Talk about some terrain that was challenging. It was vertical. You're watching. I probably fell down. I don't know. I fell down at least 50 times. At least 50 of them were hilarious as well, sliding all over the place. I ripped the butt on my pants, going downhill, slightly out of control, dealing with frozen leaves and moisture and climbing from below the snow line to above the snow line. I won't get too much into all that because I think we talked about it on the podcast, but the trip itself was unbelievable. But I tell you what wasn't unbelievable. The travel out there. So what I need from somebody who knows something about the airlines, because I haven't really started my adventure in dealing with their customer service yet, is what's the best way to go about actually getting reimbursed for when they completely, utterly screw you over, not because of weather and not because of anything other than... I don't actually even know the word to describe it. So here, I'll tell you a little bit of a tale about how I even got to France. And I actually am very proud of myself that I didn't choke anybody to death with my own hands. And I did the best that I could to constantly sit back and just realize that the person I'm dealing with wasn't responsible for the problem at hand. And I actually started every conversation with, I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated right now. I know that it's not your fault. I'm just trying to figure out a way to work through this issue. And I think that actually helped, because I'm sure if I had talked to somebody at whatever call station they were at and began screaming, probably wouldn't have gotten very far down the road. So my journey to France began in Austin, Texas. And if you listen to episode 23, that was with my buddy John Wellborn. I was down there. I was the opening speaker for his Power Athlete Symposium. If you don't know what the Power Athlete program is, or you've never heard of the symposium, I'm sure he will. Well, I know he's going to continue the Power Athlete program, and I'm sure he'll continue the Power Athlete Symposium into 2018. Highly recommend you check them both out. So I was down there in Austin. The day I was supposed to fly out, there was weather in Atlanta. It was apparently snowing quite heavily, and I fly Delta. A couple years ago, I just made the decision that I fly so much, I'm just going to pick one airline and try to get as many of the perks of travel as possible. And for people who view travel from the outside, it can probably seem to be very luxurious. But if you travel professionally and it's part of your job, I can only speak for myself. I find it to be the exact opposite of that. And most people that I encounter who travel professionally feel the same way. It loses its luster, probably because of the small issues that become big ones like I'm about to tell you about. So I'm in Atlanta. I'm not in Atlanta. My flight's supposed to connect into Atlanta, then fly to London, and then fly to Geneva, Switzerland, which is where we're going to clear customs, and then drive down to Grenoble, a couple-hour drive. And our guide was going to pick us up. It should have been seamless. Pick up your bags, meet the guide, and off and running. That's pretty much not what happened. Sorry for the head cold. Also, in addition to the trip to France, I came back with, some gunk in my head. I'm fighting it. I can hear it in my voice. Hopefully it doesn't sound too bad to you guys. Get a text message about an hour before I go up and deliver my presentation. Hey, your flight's canceled. So I looked at that text and thought in my head, that's not very awesome. The cool thing about traveling often is that there's a dedicated customer service line for the medallion members on Delta. So I got rebooked, and the only change really was that instead of flying through Atlanta, I was going to fly through Minneapolis, St. Paul. Didn't actually change anything. My arrival time was actually going to be an hour earlier into Geneva than it was through Atlanta, which was a benefit because John was already in Switzerland with Hunter doing they were on their way to be there, doing some filming at the Olympic Archery Center in Switzerland. So I make my flight in Austin, and I'm sitting there, and I had gotten upgraded to first class, actually the very first row, and come to find out they did that because they knew that our connection was going to be tight in Minneapolis. So I had the opportunity to sit and listen to the conversation between the stewardess on our flight and the steward or stewardess, a flight crew of male and female steward and stewardesses was sitting on the airplane. Delta was trying to move one of their flight crews somewhere else. And there was, I wouldn't call it an argument, but it was a discussion about how to do that because the flight was oversold. And I'm sitting here on the Delta app, just refreshing it, watching our scheduled arrival time into Minneapolis and our scheduled departure time from Minneapolis slowly inch themselves closer and closer and closer. And then finally they eclipse. So we would land shortly after the international flight that I was supposed to be on. And of course, on international flights, you're going to get generally one a day. They're usually at the end of the day. Meaning if you miss it, you're going to be twiddling your thumbs for probably close to 24 hours. I'm looking at those times, and there's no way we're going to make it. And the flight crew got off. They came back on. They took volunteers for passengers to get back on. It was an absolute, complete, and utter mess that had nothing to do with weather and had everything to do with them logistically trying to pull their head out of their ass, which terminated us landing in Minneapolis as the plane to London was taxiing. So they recommend that I go see a redcoat, which in my understanding is an agent for Delta Airlines that I don't know has more experience. I don't necessarily understand what the difference is. All I know is that they pointed me at one of those individuals who said, hey, if you don't need anything out of your bags, I recommend that you leave your bags here at the airport. We'll rebook you on the flight out of here tomorrow. So get yourself a hotel. And we'll see you tomorrow. So that's what I did. I took the advice of the redcoat and I went and found a hotel because the line to talk to the agent to get a hotel was, I don't even know how deep it was. I didn't even feel like counting. It was that deep. So I went and got a hotel. Problem is I'm looking at the Delta app and I wasn't rebooked on a flight. So I spent about 4 hours trying to get myself rebooked, which I eventually did. Got back to the airport the next day and they had changed the route of flight. I was supposed to fly from, like I said, Minneapolis to London, London to Geneva. I was happy with that flight leg because the worst experiences I've ever had flying internationally have occurred at Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. I try to avoid that airport. I would rather saw my leg off without anesthesia than fly through Charles de Gaulle. Nothing against France, but everything against that airport. It's not that I want anything bad to happen. I just want it to burn to the ground. But I digress. My new flight, Minneapolis, Charles de Gaulle to Switzerland, into Geneva. So then I started thinking in my head, my bags are still labeled Minneapolis, London to Geneva. And I started talking with the gate agent about that, ended up getting onto the aircraft and talked to one of the stewardesses. She gave my bag tags to the pilot. This dude was awesome. He was born in Austria or lived in Austria, had hunted himself, knew the area that we were going to. He took my bag tags, got out of the plane, went down, and made sure that all 3 of them got loaded. I couldn't have been happier. I literally felt like, whew, man, this trip is going to be okay. I'm already going to be 24 hours delayed, but I'm going to get there. And then in that moment, I realized, well, actually, how am I going to get there? Because the guide had already picked up John and Hunter, but I figured, you know what, I'll worry about that issue later. Maybe it's not that far away. They can swing back and come pick me up. So I landed in Charles de Gaulle, 2.5, 3 hour delay, or not delay, 2.5, 3 hour layover, which should be more than enough time at any airport on the face of the planet, regardless of how busy you are, to get from one plane to another. I actually cleared customs pretty quickly, faster than I ever have there. Waited around, got on my Air France flight from Charles de Gaulle to Geneva, landed in Geneva, was feeling awesome. For one, I love Switzerland. I go base jumping there, or I try to go base jumping there every single year. It's one of my favorite countries on the face of the planet. It's beautiful. I found the people to be exceptionally nice. So I was fired up. And I get there, and we're sitting around the luggage conveyor, and everybody from the flight is sitting there, and they're happy, and then the bags start coming out, and I'm pretty happy. And then more bags start coming out, and then I'm a little bit less happy. And then all the bags came out, and I'm not really happy anymore because my bags didn't make it. So at this point, another adventure begins because I have to go deal with a baggage company or a baggage location company that services 5 airlines that fly into Geneva, none of which are Delta, which is the company that I booked my ticket with. They flipped me over to Air France, which is one of their code share partners. Needless to say, the sweater was getting a little bit unraveled at this point. We start playing the game of, hey, here's my luggage tags. Nobody can find them. The last thing they can locate is that they actually arrived in Charles de Gaulle Airport, and apparently there's a black hole/vortex there that the bags went into. And in 2017, they don't have a scanning device that can actually tell you who has possession of your bag. So for about 6 hours, they tried to figure out where the bags were. At this time, I'm supposed to have already been on the way down towards where John and Hunter are. And it gets to the point where they locate the bags, but they're not going to make it for at least another 24 hours. So now I got to go get a hotel. So that's not that big of a deal. You know, whip open the old Google machine on the phone, find a hotel nearby, go get a hotel. Finally, the next day at around midday, shortly after midday, my bow shows up on one flight. My 2 other bags show up on another one. I finally have all of my stuff. I'm now 2.5 days delayed of when I should be hunting. Hunter and John are out in the mountains, and I'm just praying that they don't see any animals and that there's an avalanche. And I don't want them to get hurt, but I just kind of want to be there when all the awesome stuff goes down. And come to find out, it was like sleeting rain on them and snow, and they could barely move around. So it was everything that I had wished for Christmas. But now I have to get there, so I got to go to Hertz. And, like the hotel in Minneapolis, the hotel in Switzerland, the rental car, all unexpected expenses due to the fact that the airline was unable to get, 1, me to the location I needed to get to, not because of weather, but 2, they weren't able to link my bags up with me and sequentially keep it with me on my travel. And this is where I have a question for anybody who's familiar with the airline industry, and that is, what's the best way to go after these people to get that stuff back? Because I eventually was able to link up with them, and it was an amazing hunting experience. Again, something totally different, something I've never had the experience doing with my bow in terrain that was vastly varied from everything I've ever hunted in. So I think even though we weren't able to, I got 1 shot in 2.5 days and missed it by a couple inches. But I think the hunt was incredibly successful just because of the knowledge. But there's a lot of broken pieces along the way that got me there. So how do you go and get reimbursed for all that stuff? Because my experience with the airlines is the first step is they want to tell you it's not their fault, which is, if you know anything about me, that's really one way to upset me quickly, is to run away from accountability and responsibility as opposed to face it. It's not like I'm asking them to buy me a Bugatti. It's just like, hey, I'd like for you to reimburse me for the costs that were not associated with this trip. And if anybody has experience with that, hit me up. I'll obviously post this on Twitter and Instagram and all the social media channels. If you have an avenue or an approach that has worked for you, I'm all ears. Because I was going to call him yesterday, but I woke up to the news that the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, which is where Delta is hubbed, lost power and like 1,100 flights were canceled just that day. And I called the customer service line and got the recorded message. Your average wait time will be 4.5 hours. And that was the attempt that I made yesterday. But I am going to attempt to get paid back the money that they owe me for sure. So yeah, hit me up. Let me know. And that's the end of my sob story. It was I don't know what it was. It was frustrating. But I actually did better than I have done in the past. I have lost my cool with people in that situation before, and I've actually felt bad about it. I still feel bad about it. So I did a better job of trying to take a breath and just realize, you know what? The person I'm talking to, they're not at fault. They're a person too. Let's just work our way through this. So hopefully by not pissing off or yelling at people had nothing to do with it. I bought myself a little bit of good karma, but we'll see. So I'll let you know how it goes when I get the final result. But until then, here is episode 24. We had an adventure in France. And I just want to introduce to the world a young man named Hunter Phelps, who, damn, he's interesting. And I think John and I are going to make it our mission to mold him like clay into an indestructible man. So it's not even Hunter Phelps anymore. I think it's the Hunter Phelps. And here he is, episode 24.
Okay, I got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
You want to kick us off, Hunter?
Kick it off.
Hunter Phelps on the radio show podcast with Andy Stump and John Dudley. Let's get it going.
Where do we start? It's Stump, not Stump.
Yep.
And it's not the radio, it's the internet.
Podcast.
And we are live with Joe Dirt, folks. Andy and I couldn't be more excited that he's here in the office.
All I have are questions about everything from your life choices to this week. But we got to talk about this week first. So where are we, Hunter Phelps?
We're in France.
Where in France?
Somewhere in France. I could be hurt and not know where to describe where I am to my parents. And be like, I'm done, Mom, Dad. Don't come look for me because I don't know where I am.
Well, I don't even want to know what we could possibly nickname Hunter after this trip. White knuckler, green puker.
It's been an adventure,
Yep.
to say the least.
It has been.
I've learned a lot.
What's one thing you've learned?
I learned how to dry clothes properly. Step one.
You actually haven't. Your boots are still wet from the first day.
2, I learned not to start drinking with Andy Stump. I spent 2 days on the side of the mountain puking my guts up. Worst nightmare. I was ready to come home after day 2. But that went away and all's good. We're still here hunting chamois for one more day.
Yep. It's been awesome. I've
More awesome for you guys than me.
yeah, man, we got to enjoy 2 days of chaos while you enjoyed 2 days of chaos on your own.
I think I got here at the perfect time, though. The weather, it was bluebird the first day I was here. Today was glorious. Not a drop of rain. I haven't looked at the forecast for tomorrow, but you want to talk about some different hunting.
Yeah, this has been exactly what I wanted.
Have you ever done any hunting like this? Or is there hunting to do like this in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We should actually describe what it is we're hunting for. So we're in the
French Alps, southern French Alps. Southern French Alps?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we got a thumbs up from the local guide.
Yep.
Philippe.
Annie and I wouldn't be able to tell our moms where we...
All I know, the closest town we're at is Grenoble. And then we're southeast of that by at least an hour.
I think we're 3 hours from Grenoble. Okay, yeah, we're we got the nod. We're 3 hours from Grenoble. So actually none of us know where we are.
So we're an hour from Grenoble. It's fine.
Yep, we're hunting this small little mountain South Alps. We're hunting this small little mountain goat.
Small's an understatement.
Yeah, it's dinky, but it's called a chamois, and lives in just some fierce terrain. That's where it survives and thrives. There's wolves here, crazy wild hogs, obviously some hunters, and these things have learned to find a place on literally the toughest terrain this country offers to survive, and we're having to give it everything we got to get there, which is what I want. I really wanted it. And actually, I know that if you want to make this hunt, which is a really challenging hunt, if you want to push it to the number 10 on the dial, you come during the rut, which is in the winter time, and then if all of a sudden you throw Mother Nature in there, then at that point it's probably going to break you. I mean, day one when you were in the airport stuck, we had
Sleet.
We had at least a foot of snow. With sleet. You're trying to get up to super high altitude on roads that are sketchy enough as it is.
Yep.
And
Second that.
we'll get back to that. And then we drove up, got in there, and then literally by the end of the first day that Hunter and I were here, Andy was still waiting on bags, it started raining. The snow changed over to rain, so we started hunting in freezing temperatures, every single piece of clothing we could fit on, to then we're just getting drenched on, and it's still cold.
It was so nasty that I couldn't even get out the camera equipment to showcase any of that.
Yeah, to do anything. Yeah.
And to give a little context to that, everybody's wearing what I would say, there's a couple brands being worn, but it's at the higher end of what's available.
Yeah.
And if that's not doing the job to keep you dry and to keep you warm, it's for real.
It's nasty.
Yeah, there's just certain things you can't. When you're wicking, like when it's raining so hard that rain's just coming down your neck, it just wicks through you, and you got to have everything's got to be right. And equipment was a tough pick just for one condition. I had a tough enough time figuring out what I could fit in one backpack for a hike in that would help me be camouflaged the way I needed to, and then I guess to survive the elements the way that I wanted to, what would fit in a backpack with snow on the ground because I wanted to be white. And then and that was thinking, okay, it's going to be cold and it's going to be snow. That's what we expected. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's raining. And we got like 5 inches of rain, I think, in one night. So literally you have these mountains that are just as serious as they get with over a foot of snow where we were, and then all of a sudden you just get this massive amount of rain, and it was just rivers coming down, and everywhere we drove in to begin with, and the snow packed, then it became just sheer ice, and you're trying to come down, and we ended up putting our truck into the side of a bank.
I was screaming like a little schoolgirl for my life.
Which is just beginning. How old are you, Hunter?
I'm 21, and they do not make hills like this in Kentucky, I promise you.
But you had to get your passport for this trip, right?
First stamp.
First stamp and your first passport, so that little book is going to get you to go and you can see the whole big world, right? And you're going to come back from this trip a different man.
I want to thank who whitetail hunts, Like, I love whitetail hunting, but this is a whole different league, a ball game.
Well, we got to talk about the chamois more. How much do you think a big chamois would weigh?
40 kilos probably.
Which would be 88 pounds.
It'd be times
2.2.
2.2, so it'd be 84 pounds, let's say, according to my math.
4 times 2 is 8.
Yeah, we're getting the nod.
Hold on, I got a calculator.
Get those stretches going while we're podcasting. Our guide is probably one of the most vicious animals I've ever met. He's a legit dude.
Half chamois.
Half chamois, half gymnast, full French. And he has quads I'd say like a CrossFit athlete. And he does stretches like a gymnast. And he does those in fluorescent orange Playboy pants.
Underpants.
Well, they're not boxers.
Boxer briefs.
Yeah.
Boxer, yeah.
Oh, what are they called?
Boxer.
Okay, it's
Boxer.
a boxer.
Listen,
Okay.
they might be French boxers.
Yeah. So they're tight in all the right places, and you get to see a little bit of everything.
Little package.
A little pack. Packs it tight.
So back to the chamois. 88
Let's not
pounds.
get
I'm
off
just
track.
trying to get, because I want to give people perspective. I mean, so I've only been here for 2 days. I've shot one arrow ball.
Close.
It was close,
It was
but
so
it was a
close.
far shot. But it was a far shot on an animal that, what would you say, a medium pizza dish is your kill zone?
Yeah, I wouldn't talk about how far you shot it at.
I said a long
we're-
bomb.
Yeah, we're limited, but the chamois is a species of goat-antelope native in the mountains of Europe, including the European Alps.
That's true.
Well, there's a lot of mountains I can't pronounce. But the chamois has also been introduced to the South Island of New Zealand, which they're very popular to be hunted there. And they're just a really, really cool animal. If you should look it up. They're kind of a black, almost like a little miniature mountain goat.
Male and female look pretty eerily similar.
Yeah, very similar. But they're super cool, and I think because of their size is why they can get around in the areas that they do. I mean, their hooves are really unique.
And by that, I would describe it as not vertical, but as close as you could get.
I think they can go vertical.
I was watching them today across the valley, two of them sprinting,
Yep.
horizontally across the mountain that I would have been probably on all fours, scrambling across with no regard for their safety whatsoever.
No, I think they know the faster you go, you can just ride it out once you get to the bottom. But yeah, they're a cool animal, and I knew that the hunt would be. It really wasn't about the hunt. I mean, I know you really loved Alberta, and you loved. That was a different experience that you had compared to some of the Georgia trip that we did, or the
and the
trip
Montana is the only thing I have in between. Or Utah.
Utah, you did, which was also a tough hunt for terrain, but this was just a totally different experience. I mean, you're trying to communicate on strategy. You're spotting them from a long way off, and then you're having to just give it 110% to get there, and then deep down, you also know that if you don't make it happen, you're going to have to come out of that crap for no reason.
If you go down, you got to come back up. You know? And that's what's always in my mind.
Yesterday afternoon was a perfect example of this. We were driving around in a vehicle and spotted these little suckers on a crest or a little knoll. And then we went and had lunch.
Yeah.
Right? Went and had lunch. He whipped out the map, was looking at the route we were going to take, and we took the car all the way to the back of the mountain. Hunter enjoyed vast majority of that ride. He's going to have very early onset arthritis in his hands from holding onto the back of the seat. But get to the back of the mountain, and then we just dove down. A little bit of a lateral movement, and then just dove down off the back of that mountain. In my head, I was thinking, every step that we take down, we have to go back up. And every step we were taking, I was like, oh my.
And when you're grabbing stuff on the way down so that you don't end up at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. You will go down if you don't hold on to something.
But we weaved around, and lo and behold, got to, where did you see them at? 52 yards, 56 yards?
Yeah, the first sighting was at 52 yards. Yeah, there was one bedded at 52, just perfect.
Which is a credit to our guide for sure, because we did not whip out a compass or a GPS.
We spotted those things from probably 3 to 4 miles away.
Yeah. And then approached from the
approached from a good 15, probably a 15-kilometer loop, and then came literally guess where they were on one ridgeback, and bombed off this thing where you can't see it. When it's so vertical, you can't see anything more than 50 yards underneath you. So we literally just nailed it and got right to this thing that we had spotted, and we're literally 52 yards sitting there just waiting for him to get out of his bed. And then the next part of France came alive we didn't know about.
Was not ready for this, but the Russian wild boar came walking up 10 yards of us.
Which I wasn't prepared for. I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye and immediately loaded an arrow, even though you were the primary guy shooting yesterday. Yeah. And then heard the grunting. I'm not a fan of things with teeth that large. And then you saw a boar go vertical.
That's another thing. Chamois are not the only thing that will climb vertical mountains. Wild boar can climb like no North American wild boar can.
Yeah, these Russians mean business. Vertical business.
Yeah. What sucked about last night was the walkout.
In the dark, if you're wondering. In the snow and
on
rain.
frozen leaves that had a fresh... It started raining on us where the animals were bedded down. We started climbing. It went from rain to snow to frozen leaves to me on my face. I think it's more exhausting when you take those steps and your body's sliding around and you don't know if you can actually... Like, I can just walk uphill and pick a pace, but I would have a little bit of a ice-capade moment and then sit there and just...
I don't know if you're like me, but when I was Hunter's age, I wouldn't have gave a shit about any of that. But now that I'm my age, I'm thinking ACL, hip flexor, rotator cuff. Like, here goes my pelvis.
All I can think of is I just want to put Hunter on the ground. I just want to crush him going uphill some twice his age, unfortunately.
Yeah, you actually did kind of wimp out on us.
That was the same day that I was throwing up on the road.
You drank less than we did.
I think Andy Stump and John mixed my drink and put some kind of concoction in it because I woke up, immediately puked, and that kind of set it for the whole day. You know, I puked a few times, and you guys will probably see it all over Instagram and other social media for the next few years. But they gave me hell because I couldn't handle a little wine and something else concoction. And that was actually my breaking point where I thought, you know what? I need to get my ass back home. I'm not cut out for this crap.
You were as pale as the snow.
But I thought, you know what? And we went and had lunch, which we had a great lamb or goat or something. ... And but I ate that and I sobered up. I mean, you know what? I was like, I'm hunting with a Navy SEAL and John. I said, I'm not going to wuss out and just go home.
We tried to get you to stay there and take a nap.
Yeah.
We actually did.
We actually did.
Thought,
it's for your own...
For your own good, just
safety
sleep
and
in the
welfare.
truck. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, we wouldn't have said sorry, but...
Yeah, you would not have said sorry, but I thought, you know what? I'm here working, and I'm here with my friends, and I owe it to them to get my butt back on the mountain. Let's do it. Let's party.
Yesterday afternoon was it was action-packed, for sure.
It was.
Interesting.
It almost got done.
Yeah. If that thing would have stood up and not been behind a bush, we would have had a nice chip shot yesterday. And then today, we had, another
You got a shot.
crusher.
I got a shot. It was good, though.
Yeah. We both got a shot on the same goat. I shot first, and then I said, do you want to take a rip at that thing? And this thing was pulled some Houdini moves.
He's really not impressed with us.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that's a bow? Shh, check that out. Yeah, I'm 10 yards further.
Oh, you're going to have another guy shoot at me again? That's cool. Check this move.
Actually, yours, you Navy SEALed his ass. You snuck in. He had no idea you were there. And instead of at least for me, he had already heard us, so he was kind of a little bit keyed up. So as soon as my bow went off, he was like darting. But when your bow went off, he had this look on his, like he popped up and had this look on his face like, what? They got here again? So just shaved hairs. So I feel like this trip was 100% a success.
I heard it, like just the shot today. Feet, like my left foot, a foot and a half below my right. trying to gap it between trees, moving the bow around at full draw to make sure I have cover or clearance on my cams.
Yep.
Like it's, most of my practice is in the backyard on flat grass. Most of the arrows go into the target. A few go into the fence occasionally. But it gives you a different appreciation for sure. The angles.
Oh, yeah.
Where would you rate it? I mean, have you ever done hunting like this in the U.S. or hunting like this with your bow before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you hunt out west, there's areas where, not necessarily where you have this type of atmosphere, like full atmosphere of being in the Alps. I mean, obviously, if you're in the heart of the Rockies, it's aggressive mountainous terrain. Obviously, places in Alaska too. I've been in BC, I've certainly tackled hills that are every bit as tough. And yeah, depending on the area, the difference here is the conditions are really tough for footing, just being able to get a grip and walk up and down. And then obviously we're here in the middle of the winter. I haven't done an elk hunt or a moose hunt or a black bear hunt in those types of terrains where I'm there in December, like the middle of December, when they're just as vicious as they're going to be. So it's just, I mean, it's tough. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to preparing for something like this, you can do your best, but the only people that are truly prepared are, a good guide that literally is marching these steps every single day. It's just another day in the office for those guys. But, that's why I say I just don't feel like you can prepare yourself for a hunt like this by thinking you're going to go out and run for 2 weeks before you go on a hunt. That's never, I mean, it's just not going to happen. There's just so many more. That's why my workouts, I've just got to the point where I'm so much more sporadic with my workouts. I mean, there's times where I'll do deadlifts. Occasionally I'll do bench and stuff, but I'll just grab kettlebells and just look up like different kettlebell movements to where you're doing a windmill and you're having to do that. Or I like to ride a bike. I really like to I really like rucking with just plates on a ruck pack, where you're just having to pick your feet up in different types of positions. You just can't do that if all you do is go to the gym and do leg day, bench day, chest, back, legs. If you do those in like the key weightlifting type movements, you're going to have power, but you just don't have the range of motion, and you'll end up pulling some stupid little muscle you never knew you had. And I don't know, I think you just have to, for these types of things, it's just a different demand on the body.
I think you have to expect that it's going to suck, and you have to just pack your brain.
That's what I did.
Yeah,
I mean, 100%.
What was your training routine, Hunter?
I worked out about once a week. The wellness center. The last 3 days before the trip, I hit the treadmill pretty hard.
Really just to finish it off?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm young. I can do anything. I don't need to work out. Got up here and they're like, yep, you're my bitch today.
But that happens. I agree with you, Dud, on the variance. Just crush yourself. And I try to go on days that I don't want to work out, just like I don't want to hike up the 1,000-foot of vertical that we did yesterday. But yeah, if you're into a routine, whatever, as long as you're not on the couch eating Doritos, I'm totally fine with what you're doing. Even if you want to eat Doritos, I guess I'm okay with that. I just don't want you to live your life like that. So the next step would be get into the gym. But yeah, if you want to come out here and do stuff like this, I agree. Absent living here and making your job on the side of the mountain, it's just gonna suck.
Yep.
Like my hip flexors right now, I can feel them. Like, it's hard. Like a stair climber at the gym isn't going to replicate the incredibly high knee drive up above your hip to what's, I think, getting me is the fact that it's like shale rock is one thing to walk on, but frozen dirt that you can't get purchased on your boot makes it substantially worse.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you had a stair stepper where the stairs were continually changing angles, where you're having to turn your foot.
The side cuts.
Because that's what gets tough, is you're trying to turn your foot to where you'll actually get traction. So, I mean, you're almost never pointing your toe straight forward. And that's where people really start to get hurt. And, I don't know. I really felt like, for me, this trip was just all about, I wanted something that pushed a bar for me. I've actually had some trips in Idaho and in British Columbia. I've had days where 3 guys shoot a moose, and you're in the start of the Rockies in BC, and I mean, moose packing is really hard.
Are they big?
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, yeah, and you're gonna experience it because I'm gonna take you where I go.
Can I just shoot a small one?
Yes, but a small moose quarter is gonna still be way bigger than this chamois. Yeah, it'll be massive. I mean, just the horns will weigh more. Honestly, just the horns will weigh more. But yeah, I just really wanted to push the envelope, and I'm not personally into running like a marathon or something like that. That's just, I mean, I don't know. I can't get motivated to train for that and just continually run and run and run to prepare myself for that. But I will book myself into a hunt that I feel like is going to push me further than I've ever been pushed before. And then when I get there, I want to make sure that I don't say I could have had an opportunity if I would have got there. So like for me, that
to put it on the
for
calendar.
for me, that's 100%. Like when we were going down that hill, I'm just like, don't miss the shot. Like make sure you're there when you need to be there, because otherwise I'll think of, like, I know myself well enough to know I'll be thinking about that more than anything. So this really wasn't a hunt that I booked from a trophy aspect or from a success aspect. I booked this as, I wanted a new bar. And I thought it was, because you and I are both kind of, we both came here, we were both talking about a hunt that we could do cool that involved kill cliff, because kill cliff was something you introduced me to in Alberta, like probably when I needed it most.
You and Jordan needed one.
I needed it bad. And then I've grown to 100% organically like the company and the people there and the product. I'm very picky with especially supplements that I have. If I have supplements, I'm an on it supplement guy. I had one bad habit with energy drinks, and when you first showed me a Kill Cliff, I thought it was an energy drink, and then you're like, no, that's the problem. Everyone thinks it's an energy drink because of the can. And then I'm like, well, what's in it? And then I'm a big label reader anyway. You know that me and my wife are label readers. And I'm like, holy cow, why haven't I heard of this? And then when I tried it, I'm pretty much hooked. And I wanted to do a hunt where I'm like, this has been a really cool company. And you and I both were part of a pretty cool campaign, a social campaign with I Kill Cliff to get money for the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Which, by the way, everybody helped us raise $10,000, which is not a small feat
that was
by any
great.
stretch of the imagination. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I thought, if we're going to do a hunt to represent Kill Cliff in the hunting community, let's kill ourselves.
So the Endure we had last night when we got to the truck, I had one sitting in the truck, ice cold. I'm looking at the purple bottle right now. I'm assuming it's a grape flavor. Chris can yell at me later for getting the flavor incorrect, but we Wolfgang that thing in about 30 seconds, and it was exactly what I needed.
And even the pickiest eater on earth.
I love Kill Cliff.
Do you like cheese though?
I hate cheese.
Do you guys know what they eat a lot of in France?
They eat a lot of cheese and bread and lamb and goat and a lot of things I don't know what I ate, but
what's tartar?
Oh, it's like I don't know, cat food. So next time I come to France, I'm gonna bring Kill Cliff and my own order of food,
which would be
what's the stuff you have? The Mountain
House.
Mountain House.
Try one first. You might not like them either.
Trust me, it'll be a better option.
So you don't like cheese or fromage?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I mean, like
Okay.
you're right. No, I don't like it.
But what about queso?
Well, I've learned. That's another thing that I learned. That queso's cheese. That's just a Mexican term for it, I guess.
Queso. Never mind.
Y'all keep talking. I'm just kind of chilling. I don't know. No, I don't like cheese, though. Queso is good.
Cheese is bad.
Cheese bad.
Unbelievable.
There's a difference.
Yeah, we had
Promise.
some really amazing hosts actually. Our guide Philip had some friends here in the mountains that have a house that pretty much are at the end of a driveway that Hunter.
White knuckling. I was white knuckling. Going at that driveway.
He's not a fan of it for sure.
No.
Yeah, he does
Not
not
used
like
to it. Not conditioned to roads like this.
and they're really not that bad people. But yeah, he literally thought he was gonna die. We heard about every time we hit a corner, we'd hear another reason why I can't believe I'm gonna die just for one of these or
Yeah, so I didn't want to die in France today, but I thought I was going to more than one time.
Or hey guys, this is a good place to turn around. We can stop right
Yeah,
here.
like is this an ATV trail? Okay, let's take it. I can't see the bottom of this cliff, but let's drive on the edge of it while it's snowing.
Toyota Hilux, man.
No joke, for real.
No joke vehicle. Yeah.
that Toyota Hilux impressed me. It did. But our guide's driving was pretty impressive. Other than one, he had one lapse where he
Checking the map.
he was. I don't know. I thought he was trying to point down a road and
Okay,
then
yeah.
literally
Sidetrack.
hits a piece of ice, slides into a ditch, crushes the side of the car, screams out a French 4-letter American word. Come on in here and let's. Why don't you do this for us? Here's how it goes. If you crash your car in France, it'll sound like.
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what it sounds like.
What, crash a car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you say though?
What do you say when you crash your car?
No, I don't know if it's
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 appropriate.
good to
It's
say
the
that in a
internet.
podcast.
It's an internet. You're
Yeah.
fine. You can say whatever you want.
And he
to.
says
yeah,
it.
say it.
I don't know if it's good. I said fuck.
But he said it very loud and animated, and we all paused for a second, and then we busted up laughing.
FACK. Fack.
Oh, Hunter, you're going to remember this first stamp in your passport for the rest of your
I
life.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a hunt like I've never experienced before. It definitely taught me what I was made of and what I need to train on. Like
We're not
when
done
I get
yet,
home.
so, you know.
Yeah, we have one day left, but I feel like I'm conditioned for it now. And
After
and
those
I know
3
what to
days.
expect. And I think that I talked the guys into going to the easiest mountain to hunt, where we ended up this afternoon. It's not as steep and
Is that why
rugged.
you said we should go there?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it's 100% why. He was
Oh,
telling me in the back of
God.
the car. That's
Okay.
why he wants to go back there.
We are not going back there. We're definitely going to the hog zone.
So I agree it is a hunt like no other. But if you... how do you practice shooting at the angles? If you don't have something... Like if you live in a place that's flat, is there anything you... Because I'm trying to... I think from an audio-only perspective, it's difficult to understand. Like you said today when you took your shot, it was the longest arrow flight you've ever seen. Mostly because of the angle that you were shooting at, coupled with the distance. So there's a lot of other variables.
Yeah, it was like a 15-yard cut. So it was 15 yards further than the shot. So it was actually the first time when I shot, I realized I didn't follow through properly because I'm normally kind of focused on my form. I'm always focused on my form. But I shot, and I remember because we were in this massive valley, just this huge crevasse, and this chamois standing on this little rock, my arrow literally looked like it was going into orbit, like I'd shot towards the Mediterranean Sea or something, and then all of a sudden it turns and starts going down, and it was at that point where I thought, like, where is this even going? But, I mean, if he wouldn't have moved, I think it was on the money, but it was just normally when I shoot at that distance, I'm seeing it on a flat trajectory.
Yeah.
So you're so used to your arc just having a standard arc, but when you're aiming down and the arc comes over the top of your bow, and then you can see that arrow turn down, and then it's raining down. You're just like, what in the heck? But yeah, it was a vicious cut, and I learned to shoot on those from field archery, and that's why I'm such an advocate of telling archers, and especially hunters, 3D is a great way to learn like how to shoot silhouettes of animals, so
like
to
shot
speak.
placement type stuff.
Yeah, how to learn silhouettes, and sometimes how to judge distance. I think 3D is really practical for too. But when it comes to technicality, there's really some European 3D courses set them that way because they shot field first. They really like the technicality of archery in very steep terrain. So the 3D courses over here, I've seen some that are pretty vicious. But, there's times where we've been at world championships where you make a shot and there's literally ropes to like pull yourself to get all the way up to the target. Because it's just, they put them that steep and the target faces are literally on a hinge, on a cliff, facing down so that you can be underneath, shooting up, and then you can pull the string and flip the target back up to get your arrow out. Those types of things, that's the only thing that's going to prepare you for sheep country or...
I was going to say, absent that, there's no way to practice the angles.
Mountain goat country, certain types of mule deer terrain. These are just very, very technical places where even some of the best rifle shooters in the world, if they don't understand ballistics and true line of trajectory range versus what ballistic range is, I think it's just different. And actually, I know that I would have been just a little bit high on this chamois that I shot at, and I actually, which I'm not totally happy about, but I called the rangefinder company that I'm using today actually to say, hey, am I in the right mode, because it has angle compensation. And then they told me, yes, you're in the right mode, but the mode only works to X degree. And it was like, which I remember my angle of degree was almost 40. So the angle of degree was very steep, and I think it maxed out at 30. So it would have been almost 2.5 yards closer than what I shot it for, which at that distance with the bow is a lot for cast. Mm-hmm. So I really should have went back to having an inclinometer on the side of my rangefinder with my cut chart laminated on the other side of my rangefinder, to where I could have ranged the animal, checked the inclinometer degree, and then looked at my cut percentage, and then it's just really easy math. And I probably would have shot that thing for, and that's what I did when I shot field. That's how I taught myself. I would have for surely had a better distance than just assuming the device was right.
Is your cut chart based off of your, John, there he is, running off to cough. Is your cut chart based off of your feet per second?
No, it's just, the cut charts are really just based off kind of ballistic calibrations. I've never known it to really change, and it could change slightly depending on, I guess, speed. I've never went that deep into it, if I'm honest. I'm trying to see if I can, if you give me a little bit here, I'll actually find.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think,
chart.
because I know rifle-wise, ballistically, it's going to, once you sight your rifle in, you can get the ballistic cut based off of that rifle. But I think with a caliber or hotter or slower round or a larger projectile flying through, it's going to give you a difference. So I'm sure as long as you sight it in your bow. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is an inclinometer that I normally would have on the side of my rangefinder.
Looks like a very shallow U with a level.
Yep. So as you would tilt it, that would go down, and you can keep your rangefinder at that angle, and then look to see, okay, I'm at a 37 degree, and then I don't know if I have it on my phone, but I used to have, and I should have, I normally always do, but I have an actual chart that is just based off angle of degree and what the percentage of cut would be for uphill versus downhill. And they're pretty minimal, the variance. There's slight variance, but it makes a huge difference. Really doing that and practicing it, it's probably no different than good snipers. You can't just give them the math. They need to actually apply the math with real world practicality to start to really understand it better. And there's probably small variations that ballistics do have that's different between one thing to another, because I really feel like if I went out and practiced with one bow in field all year, I learned it so well to where I wouldn't necessarily have to be totally as precise with one bow versus another, because what I would learn was that my margin of error might have been a little bit better with one particular setup than the other setup. But it's definitely something people have to learn. So if you come on a hunt like this, it's critical, because like that shot that I would have had if that chamois would have came out tonight underneath us like that,
that thing would have
that's
been,
actually what made me call.
What angle do you think that would have been?
I think it was like 43 degrees.
Yeah, it was steep.
So that's a pretty dang big cut.
But with that too, though, there's the proper technique. And so absent people being able to go and practice the angles. I know one thing that I was thinking in my head today when I drew back was draw back level, like you were saying, and then bend at the waist, as opposed to pointing down at it and then drawing back and having your body completely jankled up.
Yeah, because a lot of times what happens is when people point their bow down and then draw back, a lot of people just try to pull the peep sight to their eye because they're trying to look through the rear peep, which is in your string. It would be a lot like a rifle shooter if they had front and back sights, but they kind of only, as you cock, as you pulled it up, you're with a bow, your rear sight is being drawn towards you. And what happens is, because people are wanting to properly center front sight in the rear sight, they just pull the rear sight to their eye. But there's more to archery where you're having to focus on your anchor point. So when people shoot down, normally they pull that peep to their eye and their anchor position is much higher than if they were actually level. So, and then it's the opposite for when you shoot uphill. A lot of people pull the peep to their eye. They're trying to look through the peep, and their anchor is very low. It's not even on their face.
Really?
So your lefts and rights can be completely different. So by learning to draw and anchor first, then adjust.
And what
your
he's
head
doing
to
right
the
now, he's
peep.
got his arm completely parallel to the ground,
Yep.
and then get to the anchor point. Have you ever shot angles like this, Hunter? Are you a
No.
bow hunter?
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm just checking.
By Kentucky, we just hunt out of ladder stands and
So
deer
20 feet.
stands. Yeah, 20 feet. Most of my angles are not that steep. Is what you shot today. No.
But that's what I was telling myself today when I drew back, was just keep the bow level, pull back, and then make the adjustment. And I have never, until today, taken a shot in an angle like that with my bow.
Yeah, and the shot you almost had at the end of the night would have been a very technical shot.
Yeah.
That for you to make a shot like that, you're really getting thrown in the deep end of, these are things that you can read about and you can do, and
Then you have 10 seconds when the chamois comes out.
yeah, and that this kind of comes back to when when hunters say, I've never missed an animal, or I've never,
You haven't shot enough.
yeah, I've never not hit where I aimed. It's because if you do things enough, those things will happen naturally. But then if you really start to bring more variables into that equation, well, now you have to be perfect. There isn't room for error. So, you bring someone out here that's never missed a whitetail, that's hunted out of a ground blind in Texas his whole life.
Oh, God.
And you bring him out here and put an animal, 57 yards away, but is literally aiming down far enough to where the cam is between their legs.
It's not a joke either.
Yeah, it's like, you're not going to hit that animal. And honestly, I've learned the most out of life by mistakes I've made, and I expected to make some mistakes here.
Yeah, I'd rather hang out at my margins than in the sweet spot for sure. Like it's been cool. The whole trip being out here, the terrain, the environments. Again, another new animal. I have not that I have enough experience with any animal in the 6 months I've been hunting or 5 months I've been hunting, but another completely unknown that just pops their head up and looks at you for a second and they just ghost you. Like, awesome. I was supposed to do everything we were just talking about in 3 seconds. I didn't even have an arrow knocked.
The best part was when I asked you to come. I go, hey, do you want to go hunting chamois in France? You're like, yeah. And I'm like, have you wanted to get one of those? You're like, what is it? I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I'm in. No, I think it's the, in my opinion at least, you get that breadth and depth of experience, and I bet you it'll help me with whitetail hunting or elk hunting for next year. Just being out, again, for me, this trip, like I like the backpack I'm using, but I need to find a backpack that doesn't extend above my head. So maybe if we left this trip and the shot I got today was the only one I had, total success. Field tested my gear again. Different environment, different angles, but just got to go through all that, and then that plus the experience will make me a better hunter the next time out of the gate.
One thing I really want to do better of is really keeping better documentation of the do's and don'ts that I have with equipment, because this was a really tough hunt because I knew what other people use, but that wouldn't necessarily mean that it worked for me, because it's a lot like with the shoes. Certain shoes just don't keep my feet warm, even if they're insulated right. And a lot of the mountaineering boots, because the positive side to them is they would have had more traction on the mountains than I had. But I really feel like because I'm so tall and my circulation to my hands and feet is poor.
You got daddy long legs.
I feel
for
like
sure.
whenever I cinch shoes down or boots down tight that way, or when I'm really encapsulated, I feel like my feet don't stay as warm. So I was trying to find an in-between, which I actually am really, really happy with what I brought. But there's other things where, I really think I would have done them just a little bit different. Like I definitely would have. Well, originally when we came here, we were expecting to do a pack-in hunt.
Which drove the backpack that I have, yeah.
But they got, I think 3 feet of snow.
Got demolished.
Yeah,
Just demolished.
3 feet of snow the day we landed, and they literally said, our starting point is shut down. Like we're not, we can snowshoe in, but there's 4 days of snow in the forecast. We're gonna, you're gonna be in for good. So that's why we ended up coming 2.5 hours further south. So I literally came here with a pack frame pack loaded up with layers in a certain way based off what I thought I was going to have to stay super warm at night because I didn't know how much fire we'd have. Whereas now that I've come down here, I've got a backpack that's way too big. So I'm really focusing on putting as much in my pockets as I can, which isn't the best. So I kind of wish, instead of bringing my laptop backpack, I should have brought an 1800 and my pack frame. I should have packed my travel computer and stuff in just a smaller hunting pack. There's just a lot of little things like that. I tried some. I actually bought 3 different types of socks just because I'm like, what is going to keep my feet warm when you're moving this much and then stopping when you're going to have sweat there. So I don't know. I think keeping really good documentation on that is critical. And then I guess if you're out there wanting to do a hunt like that, you got to reach out to people that hunt like that, which is what I did. I reached out to sheep hunters to say, if you had to hunt, I actually reached out to Remy Warren, said, hey, if you were having to be where you normally hunt in 2 weeks, what gear would you pack? And those people and that experience is going to be critical. But, I took 3 different pairs of socks. I learned the first day, this is a really high rated sock and it'll keep my foot warm. But the sock was at the end of my foot every single time I freaking took my boots off. So I'm like, okay, that brand of sock's gone. Like that sock's out of here.
But it might work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the point I would say is like, you're going to have, my hunting loadout for this trip is going to be completely different than my hunting loadout for other trips.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to have to come and work it out.
One thing I learned more than anything was how important it is to layer up, like have a layering system. Because you think, I'm going to need these heavy stuff, but once you start walking all day in steep elevations, I was down to almost a long sleeve shirt and a pair of pants. And
Do you know what would happen if you didn't do that?
Well, that's day one.
Yeah.
He had...
You would have almost died.
First day I walked in with 5 layers of clothes. And they was looking behind them, wondering where I was, because I was gassed out, sweating to death.
Until you stopped.
Until I stopped, and then we got back to the truck, and I shedded about 3 layers. And...
realized you were frozen to death.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sweat is your enemy in the cold terrain. It's one of the key points they hammer into you. So, like I was telling you yesterday, try to keep it at a pace where you're just below your threshold to sweat, which is tough in this environment, especially if you're trying to keep up with somebody.
Short legs.
And if it's driven by somebody else's pace. But the rule in my old job is in the alpine environment, you go slow enough that you don't sweat, because if you start feeling the sweat, you're cooked.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Yeah, because then you got to dry up. Yeah, for sure. I want to know. This could be pretty motivational. One thing for you, Hunter. I mean, you said that you were worried about this place breaking you. I mean, do you feel like you're going to be better with what you do because you made through it?
100%. Like I said yesterday, I was sick, and I went ahead and determined to go ahead. I was sickly. But I decided to go back on the mountain, because you guys were needing my help with some things. You like that, don't you?
I'm just curious what things we needed your help with.
I had to pack the team on my back.
All right.
Anyways. But but I overcame all that, and now I'm starting to get conditioned where I can handle these mountains after a few days or half a trip in. Andy's over here shaking his head like he doesn't agree.
You have no idea how much mountains can break you off.
Yeah. But
we would have got there an hour earlier just for how slow we had to drive on everything.
But by you saying that, I think I'm conditioned to where I could go on just about any other hunt now.
Yeah.
This is about the top of the food chain when it comes to toughness.
Yeah, I think if someone asked you to come do a turkey hunt right now,
so yeah, I'm gonna grab my tennis shoes. I'm coming. Grab my shorts, sunglasses. Yeah. I'm coming.
But you have to have that perspective, man. Without that difficult experience, you might have thought the 20-foot ladder stand, right, is and nothing against that. I've tried that now, and I think it's awesome as well. But yeah, the perspective of, okay, I'm sweating, but I'm cold. It's dark, but I have to move vertically, and being able to mentally push yourself through that, I think, yeah, it turns down the volume on the rest of the stuff in your life.
Well, I remember back in 10 or 12 years ago, I left a company I was with, had a severance pay, and literally took half that check, cashed it, got a new truck, put a capper on it, put a little sleeping bed in the back, and literally packed every hunting thing I had and said, I'm going to go on the road for 1 month and just try to hunt every single place I can find an over-the-counter tag. And I remember my first stop was South Dakota, and I was just doing a DIY antelope hunt. And then the next one, I actually did a deer hunt in Montana because I had drawn a deer and elk combo. But I just kind of went out and did my own thing. I remember, for me, it was intimidating. The fact that, you're living out of your vehicle, you're going, you got to put all your own stuff up. You kind of, and it was it was fun because it was something that I hadn't done, and it was, it was like this new step. It was a new door, and it was nerve-wracking at first, and then one of my good buddies drew a mountain goat. He drew a billy goat tag, a once-in-a-lifetime billy goat tag, and said, hey, I drew that tag, and I'm like, dude, that's, I'd love to come on it with you, and then next thing I know, man, not much different than you, I'm at like 12,000, well, I think it was 10,000 feet on a single, it was literally a goat path, and I'm on, and I wasn't even a dirt bike guy, but I'm on, a friggin' Yamaha 125.
Your heart would have stopped, Hunter.
Ripping up.
I've had my run-ins with dirt bike, as you probably could imagine.
Ripping up this hill. Yeah, and ended up doing this high-altitude hunt. Got altitude sickness. Ended up kind of missing the shot because I got up there, was so fired up about it. I was just trying to move everywhere as fast as I can and be the guy that got everywhere first. And then next thing, by the end of the day, both my eyes are shut. I'm blue in the face, yakking off the side of the mountain. And, didn't realize what hydration meant. Didn't realize what altitude sickness was. Whereas now, I learned from that, and I learned from skiing in high altitude. So, every morning here, first thing I do is, I take an aspirin just because it's a little bit different elevation. I'm trying to make sure I'm not gasping for air, so I take one aspirin, and it's just all those little things. But in the end, every single one of these steps has made me into where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. One little step that you told me about was I was getting so exhausted walking behind everyone that I was eating snow off the ground because I was getting so dehydrated. And you said, hey, man, don't do that. You're really just hurting yourself more than you're
you're
helping
lowering
yourself.
your core body temperature down a bunch. If you're going to do that, I used to fill up like Nalgene bottles, plastic Nalgene bottles with snow, and then put them on the inside of my jacket so they would melt. But like on the pocket, and then it would come out, and I would drink that. And that way your body doesn't have to break down the snow and then digest it. All that's just taking energy from your body.
Or just pack a water bottle.
Yeah, take a water bottle.
I was too exhausted to reach back there and grab it this week. I was just scooping it up.
Oh, man. You drank from the fire hose for sure.
It's been to that limit this week. I hope you guys don't witness everything that went on through Instagram. I feel like y'all are in for a treat. Behind the scenes.
It's been good. Plus, speaking of behind the scenes, we have Hunter is here to document the entire trip. And one thing, Dud, you were talking about was doing it for Killcliff, right? Because we are out here. They're picking up the tab, which is awesome, right? They were able to translate.
For you.
Yeah. Well, they were able to translate my jump. My career with them up to this point has been all completely jumping, but I think they saw the value in doing it, so they allowed me to utilize some of the jumping budget to come to France and not jump and hunt. And
we were trying to jump, actually. We were trying to line up a jump, but
I'm glad we didn't even waste. It would have been another bag that I wouldn't have had. So that was, yeah.
So help me, you lose that American flag squirrel suit. Delta.
There's reasons you can burn people and companies to the ground, and that would be one of them. Those are one of my special things. So we're gonna keep close tabs, but yeah, man. Without them being able to say, hey, this is what you're gonna be able to do. I mean.
Well, when they said that and you said it, I'm like, I got the spot. Because I know I'd wanted to come here, and I was going to come here anyway. So it's a tough hunt. I mean, for two guys, especially when you're trying to hunt together, which to me, I'll be probably more excited. Honestly, I'll probably be more excited for you to get something than for me to get something. I've been fortunate with hunting, and I mean, just like today, I didn't want to. I wanted you to have just as many opportunities as me, and I just thought this was the perfect place for us both to come together. Even though if two guys are with one guide, and especially we actually came on a short time period as it was because my schedule is pretty tight.
Yeah,
I know yours was too. Yeah. I mean, you literally flew here from a speaking engagement that you had. But I just thought
not directly.
I thought this is the best place to try to make sure that we represent honestly represent Killcliff, because there's some hardcore athletes, some of which you've had on your podcast,
Yeah.
that represent Killcliff. And man, I can tell you, this place pushed it. I mean, I certainly have had. I've had more leg pumps here than I ever have with a trainer behind me.
Yeah. So here's a good point we can end it, because you're talking about the experience coming out here. Some people might listen to this and they might say, hey, I would want to try that too.
Yeah.
So not now, and I'm not sure when, but I bet you within the next month or two, maybe we get the chance to. It's hard to say.
Oh,
maybe
I see
we'll
what
do a contest.
Dangling a little carrot out there.
Dangling a little carrot out there. Maybe we are already thinking about ways to change it from an audio-only format for somebody to, I've never shot a bow. Maybe I should get one of those. Maybe I should learn how to hunt. Well, actually, you probably should learn how to shoot it first. Then you should go hunt. So, yeah, if that's something you might be interested in,
we could do you could learn cooking techniques, survival techniques,
navigation,
Hunter,
hunting.
are you available for like layering to do more of like
I'll show up and explain to everybody what to wear.
Are you going to do like a queso sampling as well, or?
If you, yeah, for sure. No cheese, just queso. Yeah.
And on that note, we're bringing it to an end. We're here in France. That's all I got. You got anything else, Hunter? You want to close? You want to close out strong?
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for staying tuned to Cleared Hot with Andy Stump and John Dudley. Stump like a stump.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. The feedback and the response I've gotten to the hats and the sweatshirts and all the Cleared Hot apparel, I don't know. I don't want to call it merchandise. Whatever you want to call it. The stuff associated with the podcast, I'm blown away. Very much like the podcast itself, where I launched this thing and I had no idea where it was going to going and where it was going to be going. Wow. I have no idea. I had no idea where it was going to go, and I still have no idea where it is going. The apparel is exactly the same. I made a shirt because somebody said I should make a shirt. I made a sweatshirt because somebody said I should make a sweatshirt. Made a hat for exactly the same reason, and people are buying those things and they're throwing them up on social media and they're spreading the word. And I can't thank you enough. It's awesome. I have really enjoyed this process, and I hope the people out there listening are enjoying the final product. If you do, or if you don't, do me a favor, go into iTunes and write a review. I still truly don't know the importance of doing that, other than everybody who has a podcast or is associated with it says that it is important. But don't just do it if you have something nice to say. If you think the podcast sucks, get on there and, I don't care, rip me a new ass. It really doesn't bother me, and I'll take the feedback objectively on board. And if you have some suggestions for improvement, I'm all ears. I'll take it and do the best with it that I can. So yeah, thank you very much. And I think that's it. We're going to do one more of these bad boys until 2018. And then we're going to go big in 2018. But until then, see you.